everyone, and welcome to Up to Bat. I'm your host, Rayna Maggelet, and today I'm joined alongside, once again, 20-year-old DH and PO at Bethel University in St. Paul, Minnesota, Aidan Nelson. Hi, Aidan.
Hey, Rayna.
All right, so last time you came on the podcast, you were fresh out of TJ surgery, had the brace on, everything, and you've come really far since then. It's now August, and it's been about 8 months. So talk to me a little bit about how the last 8 months have been, briefly. I know we'll go more into detail, but give a little brief summary of how it's been.
I had straight out of surgery, they had me in a cast. I was pretty much knocked out most days for about a
Mhm.
month. It was just trying to keep the pain tolerable.
Yeah.
And then after that, probably about exactly 1 month after, I
Mhm.
got a brace on, which I think I had my brace on when we did our last interview. So
Mhm.
that's about where I was. I was still not doing physical therapy.
Mhm.
I was simply just getting my arm to straighten pretty much for the most part. And now I am all the way back to throwing. So my summer has been just physical therapy, working out to get the rest of my body strong while I slowly get my shoulder and my elbow back to 100%. And we're still partway through my throwing program, my return to throwing. We're at 75 feet right now. We still have 120 to go, but so far so good. It feels really good to be back on a baseball field, throwing, playing catch. Doesn't matter what I'm doing, as long as I'm playing baseball, it feels fantastic.
And slow progress is still progress, right? Rather take it slow than go fast, risk another injury. Don't want that.
Exactly. Yep. Every
So
PT I've had has told me to slow it down.
exactly. Yeah. And knowing you, you speed it up. So I'm actually surprised that you're taking things slow for once, which is good. Um,
Yep.
so the last time, well, when the first podcast aired, we immediately talked about doing a part two. I was like, I want to talk again in a few months and kind of do like an update on your surgery, which I've never done a part two podcast before. So I'm very
Mhm.
excited to do it on this one, especially on such an important subject. We are going to talk about mental health awareness in men and athletes specifically. So I'm
Right.
very excited to talk about that and just about, I mean, we've been friends for 5 years, so I've heard firsthand about your recovery process and how things have been, but you have a great story. And I think hearing how you've been dealing with things and how you've gone about it has been very positive and not letting those setbacks set you back. So I think hear other people hearing your story will be great. So I'm excited for this. Obviously recovering from such a big surgery had a lot of physical setbacks, but talk to me about any mental setbacks you had.
Yeah, so to be honest, going into the surgery before I even got my diagnosis, I had always told myself, I'm gonna play baseball as long as I can. If I ever get surgery, I'm done. That's it. I had a good run, but coming back from surgery, never something that I thought I could even do. And then as soon as I got told about my diagnosis, I was just like, I'm not ready to lose this. This is not something I want to lose. It's not something I ever want to stop playing. So now that I've like been through that whole scenario, my goal is to take baseball as far as I can, whether that's the pros, minor league. I want to be able to say before I hang up the cleats that I gave it my all
Yeah.
and that, and then continue with my life. So until I had the surgery, it's the most disconnected I've ever felt. It was definitely very hard mentally, much less physically, to wrap my head around the fact that I'm gonna have to start from scratch. It's gonna be relearning my mechanics all over again, relearning how my body works all over again, and taking it slow. That's like one of the most difficult parts is just that slow recovery process
Mhm.
because I need to make sure that my arm's healthy and that I'll have longevity after the surgery. And that's not something I'm used to. I'm used to doing things as fast as I can, getting results instantly. And this just isn't one of those things. So it's definitely been very hard. And I've had a lot of people around me to support me. You're one of them, friends, family, physical therapists. They're all in my corner. And I really appreciate that. Because they're the ones that are really helping me get through it. I can always rely on them. I can talk to them, especially like you, Rayna, you're in the sports world, you get it. So it's a lot easier to talk to people that get it than people that don't get it.
Mhm.
Um, but all the help is just appreciated. And yeah, so day by day, I just take it and we just go from there.
I feel like regardless of the whole athletic side, seeing it as taking it slow for your arm and stuff, it's kind of like a good life lesson, like overall, like take things slow, like enjoy it, live in the moment, and don't really speed up things, you know? So it's good that you like learn that, especially since you're so used to doing things quick. I feel like that's really nice. Um,
Mhm.
Talking more about mental health, men's mental health is so important, yet not nearly talked about enough, specifically in professional and collegiate athletes, which we know. What is your impression of professional athletes and even collegiate who regularly seek mental health services, but also publicly talk about it? Because men usually kind of bundle that down because it might not look
Yeah.
as masculine, whatever. So what's kind of like your take on that?
So my take on that is I definitely think it's needed. I'm more so of the opinion that you should talk with friends and family about it, especially like I think men's groups are really good for that because guys understand guys more than anything. So I mean, me being able to sit down and talk with other guys on the baseball team or like my roommate Brock, we had a lot of conversations about it because he's had a patellar tendon surgery.
Mhm.
So we were both recovering pretty much all last year after surgery, during surgery, all that kind of thing. So just having talks, understanding that like you guys, we're all in the same boat somewhat. We're all going through different struggles, and it's okay to talk about it in like a secure environment. I mean, I've never been one to show my emotions out in public. I've never been one to really, I use the gym as my therapy a lot. If I'm having a tough day, I go to the gym. If I'm having a sad day, I go to the gym. If I'm having a great day, I go to the gym.
Mhm.
That's just, I like to physically work out my emotions. But as you can tell, I was not able to go do that kind of stuff because of surgery. So it was definitely nice to find another outlet, and I would definitely recommend it because it's a lot better than just bundling up and waiting for that jar to pop. Because when it does pop, you don't know who it's gonna like explode on. You don't want to put somebody else in a bad situation. You don't want to say things that you don't really mean in the moment just because you're upset at something else. It's not right, and it's something that needs to be like taken care of.
I'm curious what your take is when you see pro athletes publicly talk about their mental health problems and even like taking time off, like whether that's on the IR or the IL for mental health reasons. What is your take on that? How do you see that? Do you see that as more of a weakness or do you see that as a strength?
So before my surgery taught me a lot, I honestly would have seen it as a weakness. I would have been like, why don't they just play? They're getting paid to play a sport. Like, I
Mhm.
don't know how you could ever like not be mentally tough from that. But the more I play, the more I'm, traveling, the more I'm doing all these different things for baseball, I realize that, hey, no, like it's needed. Like the
Mhm.
off season needed, time off from the sport during season needed. It's just something that you need because you can always get too wrapped up. Like I feel from the pitcher standpoint, especially, it's all mental for us. The physicality is very low, but the mentality is super just like baseball, 80% in between the ears, 20% on the field.
Mhm.
So on that like premise, if you're really in a bad place mentally, you're never going to perform to your best ability. And so now that I've been through what I've been through, and when they do talk about that stuff, I think it's really good for younger players like myself and players even younger than me to listen to that and to understand that, hey, if the pros are taking time off to get their mental health right,
Mhm.
then we should too, because they're the ones getting paid millions. We're still trying to work our way up there. So I
Exactly.
feel like it's a very powerful message that they send, and they should do it more. I feel like it's not talked about enough,
Mhm.
specifically on the men's side of it, because like I said, we like to bottle stuff up and do something else to rather than talk it out.
Many people are still afraid to talk about their own mental health issues. So, what advice would you give for people who feel that way or going through that?
Find a confidant, find somebody you trust, start with them, whether it's your mom, your dad, a sibling, your best friend,
Mhm.
somebody in the sport, your team, a coach, somebody. Start small. Start with one person and really just kind of lay it out on the table for them. If you trust them enough and they're the right person, they're a good person, they're going to
Mhm.
sit down, they're going to take into account what you're feeling, they're going to respond, they're going to help you out and take their advice. Don't just throw it away because most of the time we've all been through something similar. Or like when you're talking to your elders, like your coaches, your parents, they've been through it before. Nothing's new under the sun. Everything that's happened that will happen has already happened before. So
Mhm.
somebody's experienced it. It's good to talk about. It just really is.
When it comes to the more emotional side of mental health, where do you turn to when you need that emotional support, and what has that support meant to you?
I think the people that I most turn to are like my roommate Brock,
Yeah.
some of my closest friends like my buddy Xander or Antonio. I think those three are like my top three of like mental side. If I need something, I just go to them. They get me. They understand who I am as a person. And
Mhm.
so if I do eventually come to them with something, they understand that like it's weighing on me pretty heavily
Yeah.
because I go to the gym, I do other things to try and work it out myself before I seek help. Is that always positive? No, sometimes you should seek help before you try working out yourself or have that person help you work it out yourself. But yeah, I just, like I said before, I like finding someone I trust. I'll
Mhm.
talk with them about it. And then that's been the most helpful for me, especially through this whole surgery thing. It's been ups and downs. It's been a roller coaster.
So throughout this whole recovery process, which you're still going through, you actually moved to Minnesota full time. You're in Minnesota right now. Um,
Yes.
moved
Yep.
to Bethel, right? You're going full back. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I'm curious regarding the mental health and bringing in some Bethel talk. Does Bethel offer for their athletes or even students mental health services or counseling?
I have not looked into that. I don't
Okay.
know. I know that, but I do know that I can go to any of my coaches anytime and check up on them, and get checked up on by them.
Mhm.
My head coach Robbie was constantly texting me throughout my recovery process. My head coach Pete was texting me through the recovery process. The assistant pitching coach Myers was texting me through the pitching process. So
Yeah.
they were very much looking out for me, looking forward to me getting back, making sure I was good, making sure that I was coming back to Bethel. Like they were very on top of making sure that I was doing okay and my
Mhm.
recovery process was very good. I have a meeting the first week of school with both Pete and Robbie
Mhm.
about my return to throwing. So I'm going to talk with them about it, let them know what's going on, and they're going to help me every step of the way.
I did do research on Bethel like prior to this and make sure like they did if you were to say yes. And they do have it, which is really nice. So I was kind of wondering if you took up those opportunities. I know you were obviously in California, but prior to the surgery, if you ever took them up or anything. But also that is really nice to know like your coaches were there for you when you were across the country and going through such a hard time that they still had your back and they were still there, which is really nice to hear because some players don't always have that connection and that trust from their coaches. So I'm sure that
Yeah.
makes your playing and the bond with you and the coaches, as well as them training you, significantly better.
Yes, it really made me feel like even though I wasn't in Minnesota, even though I was away for the season trying to get myself better,
Yeah.
that I was still a part of the team.
Hmm.
It really helped me feel stay connected. I got the opportunity to come back and watch them win their third ring in a row. That
Go.
that was amazing to watch. We're going for the four-peat this year, but
Yeah.
just and once I got back, everybody was asking me, "Hey, how are you doing? We're
Hmm.
excited to have you back next year. You're still coming back next year, right?" Like they were just it I felt at home.
Yeah. And I know we talked before your trip that you were going back and you were super excited, but you had a lot of emotions. Like it's going to be hard seeing them play and you not be able to be there. So, what was like your emotions watching your team and you having to kind of sit like on the side watching rather than be on the field with them?
It it was one of the hardest things I've ever done
Yeah.
because I would watch them play and I know exactly where I would be put in a situation. I know exactly what I would have done. And they won. Don't get me wrong. They
Yeah.
won. They can do it. I am not like I'm I'm confident that I can help them next year and I'm looking forward to pitching for them and getting some wins for them, but they're more than capable of doing it without me. And so a little bit of me was like, okay, like they won again. Do they really need me?
No.
Like where do I go in this whole team part when I'm sitting on the sideline and watching them win? But
Yeah.
that was quickly just thrown out when we went to like a MIAC
Hmm.
celebration for the baseball team. And
Yeah.
that was super nice. Everybody was just saying, "Hey, we won, but we want you back. We'd love to have you back. We can't wait for you to play with us again next year." So that whole doubt that I had in my mind, quickly gone.
Well, not to mention that last year at the Maya, you threw the game-ending pitch, right, with the win.
Yes.
So you have to give yourself that as well. Next
Yeah.
year for
Yeah.
sure. For Pete.
Or Pete.
There we go. You push your body to its limits day after day, whether that's in the gym or even on the field. So how does all the training and practices in the games really test your mental health as well as physical?
So I put a lot of emphasis on getting my body right before everything.
Hmm.
So I try and work out 6 days a week.
Hmm.
I do yoga. I make sure I do my cardio. I do field drills. I hit. I throw. I do as much as I can to be ready physically.
Yeah.
Mentally, I've actually have a couple books that I've been reading. You sent me a book not too long ago that you wanted me to
Dead.
check.
Yep.
So I've ordered that actually. So that's
Oh,
on the way.
really?
Yep, yep, ordered that. That's on the way. So, I do a lot of reading. I like reading. It helps calm me down. Before bed, I'll open a book, read a couple chapters, and go to bed. And it really helps me digest what I'm reading.
Yeah.
So, one of the books I've been reading recently is The Mental ABCs of Pitching.
Hmm.
And a lot of it is just telling me like, hey, it's not that big of a deal. Like, I get it, the pressure's on, game might be on the line, but overall, you're playing a sport. I've I know that I prepared myself as much as I can off the field so that I'm ready for these on the field trials and
Yeah.
games. So that's definitely like I said, physically, and then I prepare myself mentally.
Well, speaking of that book, little self promo, speaking of that book, I sent Aiden that he just sent. The author of that book's actually coming on my podcast next. So look out for that.
You
That's going to be really fun. I'm so excited. We're going to talk more about pitching and like mental health side and all that. So stay tuned for that. I know I'm definitely going to have to set you guys up, especially you going back to school and starting to pitch and all. I'm sure he can be big help. So look out for that. Just had to mention that. Um, do you think there's a stigma regarding mental health in sports? And if so, like, why do you think it exists?
I'd say the stigma is maybe not so much a stigma, but
Mhm.
that it's simply not talked about enough.
Yeah.
One of the big fields that is coming that you'll see in colleges now for courses is actually sports psychology.
Hmm.
And that's just the mental side of sports. And in the past, you didn't really have that. And the more you see it, I think the more we'll get better athletes that can play longer, will have less injuries. I feel like when you're mentally stressed, it leads to physical stress, and that's how you hurt yourself. So I feel like that will be a big impact on the game. Any game, basketball, baseball, football. It's really not talked about, but it should be, and we need more of it. We really do because, like I said, I went through a roller coaster of emotions, especially during those first few months of recovery. Um, just the doubt: will I ever be the same that I was before? How do I prepare myself now moving forward? And I had my physical therapists and like I said, my little support group that really got me through it. They got rid of most of that self-doubt. And so, there's still that little bit like, hey, if one more thing happens, like it could be over for you. But I just try not to listen to that and just to keep doing what I'm doing because I know if I stay consistent with my preparation physically,
Hmm.
mentally, I'll be good.
So obviously we've been talking about, and I know, like I've heard firsthand, you have had mental health setbacks throughout this overwhelming past few months, almost coming up to a year. So being an athlete, like your whole life, did you face any other mental health hardships when you were younger, or was it really just as of recently or in college that you've started to have these hardships?
Um, I can't remember if I did have really mental setbacks when I was younger. My
Yeah.
parents have always been really supportive of me and
Hmm.
really have my back for a lot of things. So I'm really grateful for that. They really just have been like a solid rock, whether or
Hmm.
not I agree with them on what they say. Um, they still support me fully, and I do take into consideration what they say.
Yeah.
If they're watching, I didn't say that, but
Shout out
no.
Mr. and Mrs. Nelson.
No, but yeah. Younger. So I went through a lot of arm injuries when I was younger as well. That's really what led up to my surgery
Yeah.
this past year. So I was pretty much, I used to throw and then I'd have to take 2 weeks off of baseball until I could throw again. So it wasn't ideal, but I really just kind of pushed past it and thought it was normal. I thought, if I just took enough ibuprofens that I would be fine, get
I'm
some vitamin I in
kidding.
my system,
Yep.
and I'd be good. But oh, that's unfortunately it caught up with me, and so we had to do it. So, one thing I would say is listen to your bodies. If something's not right, if you feel something's not right, go get it checked out. It might be um just a strenuous time in the short term, but in the long term, it will help you. But mental health, no, I had a pretty solid backing for me,
Mhm.
and this has been probably the most difficult time baseball wise, where I've thought about, do I just hang up the cleats? Do I come back? But no, we're back.
Yep.
I'm not hanging up the cleats, so there's no need to
Good.
worry about that. So we're just gonna keep going strong.
That's what we like to hear. So we talked a lot about the mental side of everything, but I kind of want to switch gears here a little bit more towards the physical and like where you're at now in life. You've been in physical therapy for the last 6 months, and the ending time is TBD, but you know what it is. Rather take it slow than quick. How would you say physical therapy affects the outcome of athletes returning to their sport?
So physical therapy is huge.
Yeah.
If you get a physical therapist that is only focused on one small group, it's not going to work. You need a physical therapist that'll focus on the whole body.
Mhm.
That way it'll take, well, for me personally, that way it would take the strain off my elbow. So I'll do a little self promo now. Shout out to Cam Akerman.
There you go.
He a great physical therapist for me. I saw him the last couple months, and he has been fantastic. He works out of PFA baseball facilities, so love him to death. Great guy. He checks up on me even when I'm not being seen by him. He created a whole plan for me that I'm using up here, weighted balls wise. So he really focused on the entirety of my body rather than just my arm.
Mhm.
And in a short month that I saw him, my throwing got so much better. I went from pain at 60 feet to throwing 75 feet with ease. Yeah, I have no clue how he did it, not a clue, but I'm very grateful for him.
Awesome. So I'm sure, I mean, there's always situations where like you don't really know something until it actually happens, right? Like things they don't tell you. So, what advice would you give to others who may be heading into Tommy John surgery or even just starting that recovery process? Or what's something that you wish you knew that they didn't tell you before?
Um, I wish that I was told to really trust my physical therapist. And find a sport specific physical therapist. I went to a couple of different places. I like the physical therapists, but I really needed more of a sports specific physical therapist that would really help me out and understand what I'm trying to get to. That's worked with other patients that have had Tommy John before, know
Mhm.
exactly the metrics, what I should be looking at, what I should be doing, and trust them. Buy into their process, do the exercises, put in that work. It's going to be boring. It's going to suck. It's going to take a long time, but
Mhm.
it's worth it. In the short month, like I said, that I saw Cam, I felt so much better about my throwing, about my body. And while you're recovering, work on the little things. Correct where your foot goes when you place it down. Correct how your arm lays back when you throw. Correct those little things while you're building back up. That way, when you're fully ready to go, it's just ingrained in your brain and it's just muscle memory.
We talked very briefly about you moving to Minnesota full time, and you are
Um,
there full time now for both school and baseball less than a week ago. And I'm sure you're feeling so many different emotions on both the athletic side, getting to play back and train with your coaches and team again, but also on a personal level, leaving California, your friends and family, and the friend group all back home. Talk to
yeah,
me about how you're feeling going into this next chapter of your life.
I am very excited. There is some worry. This is my senior year of college.
Yeah.
I still have an extra year eligibility, so I don't know what I'm going to do with that. I have a lot of questions, but I also have a lot of excitement. I get to play baseball again.
Mhm.
First and foremost, that is hands down the most exciting thing that I felt in a while. I
Yeah.
get to step back on a field with my boys, go to Florida with them, win
Yeah.
another MIAC. I am overjoyed that I get to be back here. I'm looking for work right now, so that way I'll be able to, afford the apartment that I'm living in and stuff like that. But no, there is very few. worries that I have in my mind that even stomp on just the joy that I feel that I get to be back here and playing baseball with my buddies.
As sad as I am about, I mean, we both actually just moved out of California, kind of away from the friend group. So I'm like,
You
I'm
left before
sad, but
me,
like,
so
we love too. So I'm like, I can't really say anything, but you also need a job for all the meal plans and all the food you make and all that stuff. So
oh
that's
yeah,
another.
we're chefing it up in here.
Yeah, yes, expensive. What are you most looking forward to playing ball again in the spring? And more of a, unless it could just be as simple as like stepping back on the mound, but like, is there more of like a deeper excitement that you have or something else you haven't really talked about that you're looking forward to?
I would love to say there's a deeper, but it's simply just the joy of stepping back on the field.
Mhm.
I feel like a kid in the candy store whenever I just get to have a baseball in my hand, step on that mound, and get to throw for 6 to 7 innings.
Mhm.
It's just that feeling I can't find anywhere else.
Yeah. Well, it's so clear, like through the screen, and I'm sure people who may not have known you before this, how much you love and appreciate this sport. So that is very awesome to hear. Last question to wrap this up. You do graduate this upcoming spring if you don't take up that extra year of eligibility, or maybe you do, but do you have any plans post grad?
Well, I have to go to graduate school. Lucky me. I have to go to graduate school for my doctorate in physical therapy.
Let's go.
So I'm going to be looking for schools to go study there.
Mm.
Um, and I do plan on using that extra eligibility. So wherever I do go to school, I do want to play. So
And you do
colleges,
want to
if you're
play pro
watching,
too.
take a look. Bethel University, Aidan Nelson, number 13.
Let's
I'll
go.
be pitching
MIAC champion for Pete next year.
for Pete.
Manifesting it right now. Well, thank you, Aiden, so much for coming on once again. I am very happy that we got to do a talk like an episode on this topic because it's so important and clearly not talked enough. And being able to talk about it with one of my close friends means a whole lot to me. So thank you for sharing. I'm sure something that was been tough for you the past few months. So I'm sure, and I hope some people took something from this.
Well, thank you for letting me back on the show, and I appreciate it. And it's always great talking with you, Rayna.
Of course. Well, this is Up to Bat with Rayna Maggelet. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.